It's me, TMB, and I'm here because my problems are everyone's problems. Just you wait and see. Hello, friends and enemies. Welcome to the very first introductory episode of TMB Problems, because I'm TMB and we're here because I got a lot of problems. But here's the catch. My problems, they're also your problems. In fact, my problems are, well, they're everyone's problems. Your mom's problems, your kid's problems, partner, friend, coworker, the barista at Starbucks you see getting your coffee every morning, that cute guy at the gym that you maintain semi-awkward eye contact with as you do your squats. Did I just say that out loud? Okay, whatever, it's totally fine. Anyway, that's the deal. We have problems. Big ones. But I'm here to help us solve them. I'm a problem solver. What can I say? Or, at least acknowledge they even exist in the first place. Because if I'm being honest, and I'm always being honest, I'm not sure that most of you are even aware of these massive, creeping problems that affect your everyday life and will profoundly impact not just your future, but the future of your grandchildren and our entire world, frankly. Do you know what I really hate? I hate when people say, oh, we don't discuss politics or religion. We don't want to argue with our friends. We just want like a peaceful dinner or Thanksgiving or whatever. That's really, really dumb. It's also the problem. We stopped talking to each other. We stopped discussing two of the most important things with the most important people in our lives. We stopped talking about things that really matter with those closest to us. We now fear being canceled, losing our jobs, or not even getting hired in the first place. Should the HR manager disagree with us politically or not like our skin color or gender preference? We decided somewhere along the way that being polite, being nice, going with the flow was more important than being right and honest and courageous. Be a nice person, a good human. What does that even mean? Can someone tell me? Because it sounds like utter and complete BS. And I'm sick of it. Aren't you? So, what is this show even about and how will it work? Why should you listen to TMB Problems? What topics will be covered? Who will I interview? Hint, some really cool people. What inappropriate thing will I say that my mother will undoubtedly text me about immediately? Many. There will be many. Who am I even speaking to and why? Well, to begin, each episode, with the exception of this one, will last somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. I don't want this to be some annoyingly long episodic podcast. I will introduce a topic and pontificate a bit for about 15 of those. And then I'm going to introduce a guest who will join us to discuss or debate the topic or something related around it for another 10 or so minutes for a segment called 10 with Tiff, because that's my name. In the remaining 5 or 10 minutes of each episode, I will give you my book or reading recommendation of the week, a hint at what the next episode will cover, and some final closing thoughts. Sound good? So again, this episode is different because it's the introductory episode. It's going to be longer because I'm kind of giving you an overview. So it's a lot of pressure, guys. Let me tell you. A little stressed out. So cut me some slack here. So this will be the one exception to the rule for the episode format going forward. At its core, TMB Problems is about the really important issues and problems that are riddled throughout our world, politics, countries, societies, whatever. which are not getting airtime. They are being steamrolled by the coverage of a lot of political infighting, or Biden misreading a teleprompter, or celebrity marriages and divorces for that matter, which P.S. I totally called the J-Lo Ben Affleck thing if that happens, just reminder. Those things, they don't really matter, but they seem to be all that we hear about. I'm constantly shocked at the lack of information or knowledge possessed by smart people who just aren't getting fed or reached by facts or science and real news. It's not okay. We are living in silos. Big, serious things are happening in the world, from male sperm count tanking and the global population decline, to China quietly taking over every third world country's infrastructure, to the lack and loss of virtue in our leaders. If we focused just a little on these things, on these issues, we could change the game. We could reclaim the world we are rapidly losing to glittering clickbait, forever claiming our attention and quickly distracting us from what is truly important on planet Earth. This is not a show just for women. Although it was originally inspired by the shocking lack of space for everyday discussions for intellectual, college-educated, or professional women, especially if you lean conservative or moderate. Women like me, women like many of you. We more than often are not spoken to. We represent the largest unreached voting demographic by the right. However, we are now the bread and butter of the left because we vote. And we are only being reached or listened to or pandered to from one side and one side only. There's only one side of the story getting told to us on these important issues, and it means that we are usually missing most of the facts. So this show was inspired by that entire demographic to which I belong. When I couldn't find a podcast or place or person to listen to who reflected me, my values, my complexities, the fact that I don't fit into some nice little conservative Christian housewife MAGA box. Those women are great. Most of my friends fit that description. But that's not me. And that's okay. But where are my ladies at? I mean, hopefully here, listening to this show. However, there's something similar to be said on the men's side as well, because a lot of my male friends are frustrated by the Andrew Tate's macho, chauvinistic ideology that's being pushed on them, and even more frustrated or discouraged by the hatred of men that is now the norm in our society. I mean, especially if you're a white guy, just God help you. It's the girls do it better and the future is female emasculation of an entire generation. So, as the season goes on, I'm going to be increasingly speaking to a male audience about very critical male-specific topics. This is not a current event show. I am not going to be reporting on the news per se, or breaking down the latest moronic things someone said or did during a White House press conference this morning, but discussing larger, overarching issues and subjects from politics to dating, sex, relationships, technology that plague us as a people generally. This is also not a show where I hide my opinions. Like that's ever happened. I value honesty above everything. You ask me a question, you'll get an answer. Unfortunately for my dating life, or lack thereof, I don't play games. What you see is what you get, and I'm as transparent as they come. So, this is a show where we discuss things that matter in ways that anyone can understand. You don't have to have some Ivy League degree or education or PhD in political philosophy or economics or biology to understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to do that work for you, and I will do my best to break down big, often intangible or complex ideas into theories, into something digestible and understandable to anyone. That is my goal. I want you to no longer be left out of the conversation. The most important conversations, actually, because you might not have the information, might be exposed to a subject, or maybe you're simply intimidated by it. Intimidation doesn't exist in this space. Neither do stupid questions, because those don't exist either. If you don't understand something, or I haven't successfully explained something for you, please tell me. I will try to do better next time. It's also very important that I say this is a place where we talk to those who disagree with us, and we deeply value the lost art of debate. If I'm going to argue with someone, and as a former speech and debate team nerd, let's go Waves. I really, really do love a good classical debate amongst friends. Then you better believe that I'm going to be buying you a drink afterward, or a donut. It really just depends. I want to hear why you disagree with me, why you think I'm wrong, what shaped that opinion, what can I learn from you that will either better inform my own perspective or alter my viewpoint. Teach me something. Give me facts, not just another insulting meme, not some play on my emotions or attempt to tug at my heartstrings. Don't give me some Sarah McLachlan singing angel song with a little puppy eyes. No, I want this to be a space where we are what we were and what we are intended to be. A society made up of individuals, but who are united as a people. Now, whether to you that means as Americans or as Westerners or as traditionalists or lovers of the good, the true, and the beautiful, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're here talking about these problems, talking to each other, just talking. I want us to be a part of a conversation. More often than not, there is no conversation. There's just a bunch of shouting. We don't communicate to the other side anymore. We don't listen either. We mock them. We berate them. We can be really cruel to each other, and we do it publicly and without remorse. We aren't really even on speaking terms with opposing sides at this point. And that makes me sad. It also means we are knowing and learning less. One of my passions is civil discourse, and our world is increasingly lacking it. We used to talk to each other in our barbershops or nail salons or on the bus or plane or in line at the grocery store. Now we're all just on our phones or listening to something with our headphones on, unapproachable and isolated in our own little world, completed with our very own and excellently curated playlist. So we don't even have to talk to a store clerk. Don't even get me started on how this behavior is also causing just unprecedented lack of generational knowledge being passed down between older and younger generations. I mean, why ask grandma when you can ask Google, right? You know, we ask our web search engines more questions than we ask the people we are closest with. We trust man-made algorithms for the full history of something instead of asking the people who actually lived it. We aren't even asking questions on dates like we used to. A study came out recently, like just a few weeks ago, I forget where, talking about how men are no longer asking women questions during dinner dates. And women are just sort of at a loss as to how to carry on a conversation that's one way. Something said about this was that men no longer care or have to get to know you because our culture values sex and is meaningless, temporary situationships. And they're shallow as they come and offer no depth or real human connection or relationship opportunity to build a life off of. Our society has told women that men don't have to ask questions or put in the effort or get the work to get to know you before they get to know your naked body. Again, that's a problem, and it's an offshoot of a much larger one in the realm of dating, relationships, and sex. And that's an umbrella topic that we're going to discuss at length and in explicit details. You are welcome, America. But the idea is the same. Men don't need to talk to you when they can go online and just swipe on someone else in seconds. It's endless options, zero effort. We have technologically ruined ourselves in self-imposed isolation. It's why we are now the loneliest generation. We are struggling with the most depression. Questions lead to connection and learning. Without talking to each other and asking questions, how can anyone ever grow or expand their horizons or build bridges? How can something like diplomacy exist in a Cold War? The short answer? They can't. Learning is the pursuit of knowledge. And the pursuit of knowledge is really, at its core, an act of obedience. What do I mean by that word obedience? Well, I mean the recognition that you are not the captain steering the ship. You do not have all the answers. And there is an unbreakable truth that every human must submit themselves to if they are to live fulfilled lives. They can fight against it and buck it like a bronco, but they're gonna get hurt. Maybe break their backs and never recover. Unlike that guy in Yellowstone. I don't know how he's okay. Obedience in pursuing truth, which does exist and is not relative to anyone or any place. Pursuing the truth wherever it may lead you and understanding that you and your wants and your needs will always be second and subordinate to the constant and historically backed concepts of reason and meaning. That's what matters. You must obey reality. I'm sorry to say that to some of you. It's got to be tough. But you cannot claim something that isn't simply out of desire. Just like you can't shoplift or dangerously speed on the freeway unless, you live in Arizona. Don't get me started. We're lucky all to be alive. You can't murder somebody because those are all wrong. You can't cherry pick your truth and reality. You can't arbitrarily decide to no longer follow logic and reason and say something like, sterilizing and mutilating a 6-year-old child whose brain won't be done developing for another 20 years is totally fine, and it's their choice. Neutrality doesn't exist in truth. Truth is like a stern old school principal. Her rules don't bend for anyone ever. Following truth down the path it takes you is often uncomfortable and will lead to situations that are as far from easy as you can get. It's a narrow path, but it is ultimately the only path that will lead you to safety and out of this increasingly dark and less enchanted, more haunted forest that we call life. That's the way to happiness, to contentment, to safety. It won't always be fun. Going down this path will require courage. And as my favorite author, C.S. Lewis, said, courage is every virtue at its testing point. It's how knights and heroes are made. Courage is how we got here. Courage is what our forefathers had to leave their homelands and comforts and come here to America to completely start over, and often with absolutely nothing. The courage to fight and possibly die for what they believed in, and many of them did. The courage to be humiliated and ostracized and punished for doing what they knew was right and good and true. Following truth means obeying what it tells you and understanding that it writes the rules of the universe, not the other way around. Truth is the order that's holding back all the chaos. You can't escape it, even if you try, and I know some of you have. But truth always comes to light. It always wins, either to our benefit or to our detriment. And that is something only we can decide. Truth often hurts, like salt in a wound. Like light, it is a sort of disinfectant for the world. It cleanses and makes whole and even possibly holy everything that it touches. Where there is only truth, there is no uncertainty, no questioning, no confusion. But truth comes at great sacrifice sometimes. sacrifices of comfort, security, being liked. Truth is never free in a world increasingly built on lies. I mean, we face falsehoods and misleading information in our face every single day. From someone's dating profile where they claim to be, 6'5", have blue eyes, a trust fund, work in finance. But they're really 5'8", broke, and live with 2 roommates in an apartment downtown and totally photoshopped over that bald spot. Yeah, ladies, we've all been there. We've all been there. So from that to the life that we think someone leads because of their carefully curated Instagram feeds, to biased media, factually incorrect history books, lying politicians or celebrities. And I'm sorry, but let me just tell you, I know certain things about certain celebrities who I'm not close with anymore, who lie to the face of young girls and say they use some lip plumping lip gloss when I was literally there when they got their lips done with filler. Ugh. The point is, truth is hard to find these days. It's even harder to love and advocate for. It requires self-sacrifice. And we have become a society of selfish people. We value us in the present over everything. Instant gratification, no responsibility. We don't want anything hard. Ugh. We have no grit, which is why, Angela Duckworth wrote that great book called Grit, which you should buy. And we are usually a little too busy to get caught up or waste our time with annoying facts and thoughts like this. I mean, they're so abstract and unimportant to our everyday lives or go over our head or whatever. It all seems so out of reach and up in the clouds. And I get it. We're busy. We are busy people living busy lives. But we are so caught up in the busyness of being busy that, guys, we're missing the big picture. And this is especially true in America, perhaps more than anywhere else. We lack time. And time is the most precious measure of anything that any human being can ever have, because we can't make it. We can't control it, unless you're Tony Stark. It is finite, and we can never get it back. Once time is gone, it's gone. Be it wasted or well spent, it is our most precious resource. And I mean, not to sound dark or bleak, but all of us have this clock ticking down the minutes of our life. So do our societies and cultures, buildings and beaches. Time ruins us all. So what does that mean for you and I? Well, it means that we better make the freaking most of it, and we better use the time that we've been given and have left on this earth to do something important, to be a part of something that is so much bigger and greater than us and our small, momentary glimpses of life on the timeline of the universe, that we somehow remain alive in a way as a part of a tradition that is more meaningful than ourselves. That word, tradition, cue Fiddler on the Roof, is one that you're going to hear repeated over and over in this show, because tradition is at the heart of so much of what we are discussing. So is virtue. In fact, all the classical virtues have some hidden, but perhaps not overtly obvious place in these very current discussions we'll be having. The lack of prudence in our politicians, the loss of appreciation for classical beauty in our world, disappearing courage in pretty much everybody. Tradition is what has held us together as human society, stemming from reason and meaning. Tradition is the through line that can be traced for thousands of years. It is not, as many so oftenly assume these days, it's not a path walked out of ignorance or small-mindedness or old-fashioned ideas or some adjective we now hear thrown at anything traditional, claiming it's uncool and out of date. Tradition was forged like gold in a smith's hand, forged by centuries of trial and error, of war and death and prosperity and famine, and it has meaning. It's not something to be stuck in a time capsule and buried or examined behind museum glass as a relic of an age past. It is what has kept us alive and what holds us together. And if it hasn't been made at least a little obvious to you in the last few years of our crumbling and polarized society, I'm going to show you how something like tradition and traditionalism is vital to our very existence, and why certain things, certain known facts and ways of life must be preserved and protected at any and all cost. Or we will go the way of every great society who no longer walks the earth, and that you and I may have never even heard of because it has been forgotten and lost in the sands of time. Postmodernism and progressivism and the other related isms are the enemies of tradition. They want to rape, pillage, and kill her. An example of this? Well, there's this super cute new girl on the scene since postmodernism began that people like me have been quietly hating on, called historicism. And frankly, she's kind of a biatch. So essentially, historicism, can you tell I'm a nerd, is one of the roots of our current troubles. It basically claims that things are not constants in the human condition, but are sort of isolated and confined to specific people groups or moments in time. Human constructs, if you will. Right and wrong become historically relative, old-fashioned, out of date. Basically, it's an academic way to sort of dismiss anything traditional as uncool or useless in favor of something modern or new or so far from what society as a whole would consider a given that it becomes a point of controversy. The late, great, and brilliant Leo Strauss, who we will dedicate an entire episode to later this season. Don't worry. If you don't know anything about him or who he is or have never heard of him, you will. I promise you that. I owe it to the Claremont Institute. He said that historicism is, and I quote, the single greatest threat to intellectual freedom insofar as it denies any attempt to address injustice pure and simple, because historicism rejects the idea of natural right or right by nature, so natural law. Strauss argued that historicism rejects political philosophy and is based on the belief that all human thought, including scientific thought, rest on the premises which cannot be validated by human reason and which can change from historical epoch to historical epoch. Strauss warned against historicist social scientists' failure to address real-life problems, most notably that of tyranny, to the extent that they relativize or subjectivize. And relativism is a key word that we will continue to dig into, but that they relativize all ethical problems by placing their significance strictly in function of a particular or ever-changing socio-material conditions devoid of inherent or objective value. So Strauss criticized the abandonment of ancient political thought as a guide in interpreting modern political problems. Basically, it was a goodbye Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and hello Hegel and Marx and Heidegger. I mean, no wonder we're in trouble, guys. Strauss offers a complete critique of historicism, and it emerges in the works of those last three in his books, which I highly encourage you to buy and read, and I'm including as a part of this week's recommended reading list, which I will always have linked in my bio on my socials or on my website, so you can just go there. But Strauss went so far as to blame historicism for the existence of things like Nazis and communists. I mean, literally, Nazism and communism, guys. So maybe it would help if I gave you a cultural example of what historicism is. Okay, let's do it. Personally, I had to deal with New Historicism, which was made popular in the 1980s and says that a book can only be understood within its time period. So if I'm reading Shakespeare, I can't just read Shakespeare and glean from the text the original intentions of the author. I can't just take it at face value. No. According to historicism, I would need to understand the sexuality of William Shakespeare and feminist theory and women's rights in Elizabethan times. I would have to know about the poverty of the poor working class, how the theater cast their actors, and the corruption of the Anglican Church at the time, etc., etc., etc. It steals your ability to just read a classic work and take it at face value. As a former English lit major, I experienced the banality of this historicism without even knowing what it was, as I just wanted to write on Sir Alfred Lord Tennyson's Arthurian literature and the beauty of his poetry. But I was told I had to do it, and I quote, through a feminist literary critical lens showing how women were subjected to the whims of men in the Victorian era, and that the Lady of Shalott, which, by the way, my favorite poem on earth, if you haven't read it, read it. It wasn't just a gorgeous, meaningful, epic poem. No, I needed to show how it represented the death of the Victorian female ideal, chaste angel of the house, and ushered in the red-lipped, sexually liberated woman of the industrial age. Kill me. I hated it. I wanted to cry. And now I know her name. And this is what causes us to miss the point. Because you can read Tennyson at face value and you can take it for what it is. Gorgeous poetry written about finer things, about love and bravery and beauty and classical virtues and what it means to be fully human. His poetry wasn't some subconscious critique on the role of women in society at his time. His poetry was there as a beacon, teaching us and reminding us that courage and beauty and integrity and honor meant something, that traditional values mattered, that there is a tradition bigger and more ancient than ourselves and to which we belong, and to deny that truth is to harm only ourselves. Transgenderism is, in my opinion, another easy modern cultural example of where historicism has taken root and grown cancerous lesions on society. It speaks to the scientific problem of historicism. Remember what Strauss said, talking about ethics. The entire concept rests on the premises which cannot be validated by human reason, which come and go and change from historical era to historical era. So it goes against the concept of the existence of a natural right or natural law. And when I say natural right or natural law, what I mean by that is the belief that human beings are inherently born with a moral compass, knowledge of good and evil, if you will, that intrinsically guides us. These rights are not dependent on laws or customs or any country or culture or government or society or time period, but they are universal, fundamental to the human existence, and are, as our American founding fathers remind us, inalienable. They are what we now call human rights. They are what tell you that the Holocaust is wrong, that freedom is good, that women and children should be protected by men. Did I just hear like a tiny audible gasp from the feminists listening? Yeah, no, I said that women are physically weaker. It's biology, so deal with it. Which brings us back to transgenderism. Do you see what I did there, guys? No other society in history thought it was a great idea that must be accepted and protected as a right to say that a man is a woman and should be treated as such, and vice versa, and that there is a fundamental human right to chop off a little boy's penis and testicles, or chop off a little girl's boobs and pump them full of crazy drugs that forcibly and permanently change their bodies and hormones and just destroy their little bodies. That is not a right. In fact, that is freaking insane. Yet here we are. Because with the help of something like the ideology of historicism, traditional gender roles, quote unquote, have become an ick, as the cool TikTok kids say. They are trapped in time. And like, P.S., I'm so not cool. There's probably like an even newer, cooler Gen Z word for this, which I definitely do not know. So for future reference, I'm where cool goes to die, and be prepared for that. But you could also like do a girl a favor and send me some cool Gen Z words. Thank you. Anyway, historicism, it could be said, is responsible for there being no continuum in meaning. Everything is sort of segmented, like the way we used to look at those charts on classroom walls of like prehistoric timelines when we studied dinosaurs as kids, the Paleolithic era, all that stuff. With that train of thought, it turned being just an average, normal man or woman into being straight or gay. It redefined the word. So no longer just a given in mainstream society with outliers who were homosexual, it turned the normal traditional roles into the outsiders by pushing them out of the status quo saying that it was out-of-date information, that we are all just on a sliding gender scale, and into their often new description, and this is one of my favorite things, guys, of quote, performing limiting heteronormative gender roles. Sorry, did you catch that snowball as it slid down the mountain? Because it's a freaking avalanche and no one thought to stop it because it looked pretty harmless. Kind of like Joe Biden, but that's another episode. So being a heterosexual man or woman is no longer cool. Apparently it's not hip to be square, so they lied. You have to be bisexual, polyamorous, pansexual, LGBTQ, XYZ, ABC, whatever. I don't even know. And as historicism slowly redefined things and made squishy and soft things that were traditionally solid, we see this change in culture that has a massive trickle-down effect. This is where everything becomes relative, okay? So now the meaning of the term marriage is relative. It could mean a man and a woman, woman and a woman, man and a man and an animal. Who knows what else it means in Utah? But think about it. How many people supported Obama signing into law the legalization of gay marriage? Many. Most. No matter where you land on the subject. And I have many gay friends who I love to death, by the way. I mean, guys, I was originally a musical theater major, okay? And my sister was a well-known pageant queen. So I loved my people. But marriage, being the operative term here, is defined as holy matrimony, a religious institution and event. Holy being the pivotal word, in which the government should have no say or jurisdiction, and in fact, which goes directly in the face of almost all traditional faiths, Christian, Muslim, you name it. We aren't talking about civil unions and legally recognized partnerships. We are talking about redefining holy matrimony, which comes from the Judeo-Christian tradition and originates in Scripture, not the U.S. Constitution or Bill of Rights. No, there was a line that got crossed between traditional and progressive, where the traditional is being actively gutted before our very eyes as those with influence and power try to, what I call, Stepford wife our society by quietly replacing the traditional with the postmodern, the progressive, the very things that erode or go in the face of tradition. You know, that same tradition has kept every flourishing society alive and well for all of human history. There is a clear, undeniable, and distinct pattern that shows that when you study great societies that fell or crushed or were overtaken and destroyed, they all shared one thing in common. They walked away from tradition, every single one. On a side note, and for your learning pleasure, I won't get into the nitty gritty because we're going to save that for a full episode later on, but the US government was never involved in marriage until after the World Wars, and they wanted to incentivize young men and women freshly returned from years of war and turmoil to settle down. And, you know, like the dad from my Big Fat Greek Wedding goes, get married, have babies, you look old. They wanted them to buy the house in suburbia with a little white picket fence and have 2.5 kids or more, ideally more. They wanted them to buy as many new appliances and cars and clothes as possible. I mean, all you have to do is think of the show Mad Men. That was this era, crazy advertising era. The government needed to make sure the economy didn't crash and the country didn't disappear after a war that killed tens of millions of its young men and women and cost even more in dollar numbers. You know, it was imperative to fill the industrial factories that had been turning out war materials like bombs and bullets into something profitable so that there would be jobs for the young men and women to come home to, so that the country could muster on, so that the economy didn't collapse. So, what did the government do? Well, friends, it did what it always does. It offered them money. It incentivized, like treats for a dog. This is when we see the introduction of things like marriage tax incentives and every single government program that entangles itself with the concept of holy matrimony. somehow that church and state boundary had been violated by the state, not the church. And the problems and arguments we still see now in politics and culture in this subject really all stem from this single origin point. It was about the economy and money and the bottom line, and not about virtue or morality or rights or marriage, really. In a later episode, I plan to talk about another similar, closely related problem, which is that of fatherless homes within the minority communities, and how that has also been a government-instigated origin point of disaster that has had massive and incredibly damaging impact on our society and continues to presently. I mean, from the percentage of Black men overwhelmingly in jail, to crimes and drug abuse in minority neighborhoods, to the skyrocketing suicide rates in minority professionals and students. This is serious stuff. People are dying and no one wants to talk about it because it goes back to the government. But that's for another day. So, according to historicism, everything is relative, right? My truth is not your truth or my parents' truth or their parents'. There is no universal through line where there is basically no such thing as normal. Normal is a societal construct rooted in whatever new oppressive word of the day is being thrown around by the newest unqualified tenured Harvard professor. Imperialist, misogynist, sexist, xenophobic, homophobic, colonizer, patriarchal, I know I'm missing a bunch, blah, blah. Garbage. It's garbage. It's almost like in order for them to feel important or accepted for their twistedness, and I don't think there's a word that really matches it better than twistedness, they must destroy all the rest of us traditionalists and society along with it. If you've ever studied the postmodernist Foucault, and note, I did not refer to him as a philosopher because he was not. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, do not worry. It's not that important right now. I'm going to tell you all about him later, and it'll be really fun because the guy was a little crazy, but actually rang the bell on his fellow liberals getting out of control, which was hilarious. And yeah, well, I'll tell you all about that. So this historicism is what is responsible for something like the atrocious and incredibly, and I say this as a very snobby academic, guys, incredibly poorly researched and fact-checked work like the 1619 Project. If you aren't familiar with the 1619 Project, it is a horrible work of shoddy, wannabe journalism that claims America was really founded in 1619 by slaves, not in 1776 by our forefathers, and that America, as we know it, was created to protect slavery, and we're all basically racist, and the real founders should be recognized as slaves from Dutch or Spanish ships or whatever. I don't know. It's ridiculous. And by the way, for those of you who are unaware, the New York Times, who published and supported the 1619 Project, actually had its own fact checkers write to the editors that it should not be published and was riddled with errors and really bad research and just completely false statements. And I think some of them quit over it. But I could be wrong about that, but it was a really big deal internally at the Times. Why? Well, because it went against their tradition of reporting with integrity and publishing unbiased journalism. And I think it's safe to say that that tradition is now more broken than a circus horse, or several other euphemisms that I can think of offhand that are probably inappropriate to say out loud. You get my point. Traditional values are what tell us that men shouldn't hit women, or that children are to be protected and cherished, that the nuclear family is vital to maintaining a healthy society, that men should pursue women romantically, not the other way around, and that masculinity and femininity are complementary, not in competition with each other. Tradition tells us to be proud of where we came from and what our forefathers had to sacrifice and overcome to give it to us. I mean, tradition is patriotism, something we are rapidly losing. Tradition says this is right and this is wrong. And that really, really bothers an increasing number of people. Maybe it even bothers you, in which case, thank you for listening. Relativism is the term I've been discussing a lot of here. And relativism says that, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and what's right and wrong for you might not be what's right and wrong for me. And, there's just no North Star pointing the way home with relativism. Everything is relative. Truth, beauty, goodness, these great and ancient ladies are diminished into one dumb man's opinion and used as tools to justify his or her wants or desires or actions. And then another man or woman can just have a totally different set of definitions for the same words. And now there is no truth. So you can call something hideous. And, in case you couldn't tell, I don't care if I offend you, so I'm gonna say it anyway for all you modern art lovers. But you can call something hideous, like a Damien Hirst artwork made out of a dead animal in plexiglass covered in urine, beautiful. You can call propaganda by the Chinese Communist Party truth. You can call pornography, which is literally rewiring our brain's neuroplasticity and causing innumerable detrimental physical and psychological effects to boys and men alike. We not call that good, healthy, fun, great, wonderful, entertainment, and liberation. But nothing could be further from the truth. The ugly is not beautiful. The propaganda is not truth. And sexual freedom is not freedom at all. That is relativism in a nutshell. So, the concepts of right and wrong are more and more considered very uncool terms. But as we have established, I love it when things are not cool because it means they're usually good. Doing your homework, not cool. Eating your vegetables, not cool. Not showing your boobs on Instagram, super not cool. But I'm here to tell you what's really cool. It's that right and wrong do exist, and truth is not relative, and history matters and is important. And here's the thing, guys, you have to stop being a part of the problem. You have to stop being apathetic of thinking that someone else will take care of these problems because, and hear me now when I say this, I have bad news. I have freaking bad news. You ready? Help is not coming. You have to be the ones to save us. And by you, I mean we, all of us together. No matter where you come from, what you look like, what you believe, how much money you have, what you do for work, where you went to school, who you voted for, we all share the responsibility of the human condition. We have to put in the effort. We have to tell the truth, no matter what it might cost us to do so. We have to be courageous and brave. We have to be creatures of reason and not of want. We have to stop simply being nice. Nice has gotten us nowhere. Or if it has gotten us anywhere, it's nowhere good. Because, C.S. Lewis, I quote him a lot, but he said, the safest road to hell is the gradual one. It's the gentle slope, the soft underfoot without sudden turnings or milestones or sideposts. Basically, it's a nice path. It's an easy path, and it leads straight to hell. We need good. We need to value what's right, not what's easy, not what's non-confrontational, not what's politically correct, not what might make us more popular or help us get that promotion or make us feel safe or accepted or whatever. No, that is all temporary, fleeting BS. I'm advocating for no more Mr. Nice Guys or girls, nice ladies, people, TBD. We need to work on that. The world's new definition of nice is the enemy of good. Nice is where truth often goes to die. anyone can be nice, but would you trust them with your life, with your children's lives, to babysit your dog while you're out of town? Yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer was considered nice and he was eating people, okay? Very few of us would voluntarily choose a more painful good over the nice if we have the choice. Welcome to humanity. We don't want anything that would interrupt us finding our peace or our busy travel schedule that we must document and post all over social media. We live in the era of like, you do you. Do what makes you happy. Follow your passions. Protect your peace. Live your truth. Trust your feelings. And that one like makes me throw up in my mouth just a little bit, because how many horrible things have people done? How many vows have been broken and lives ended because it made someone feel good? More destruction has been caused by the phrase, follow your heart, than anything else. The human heart is deceitful above all else. Our emotions lie. Truth does not. Reality does not. Reason does not. It's basic math. And 1 + 1 does not equal your 4-year-old daughter who likes to wear overalls and play with her brother's Hot Wheels. Doesn't equal her being magically really a boy trapped in a girl's body, and we should chemically destroy her and cut off her boobs and change her name and dress her differently. Guys, that's bad math. That's really bad math. And it's pervasive. It's like wildfire, with the winds of society just fanning the flames and setting everything else on fire as fast as they possibly can. And this comes back to relativism. It's killing us. Relativism makes truth non-existent, and therefore meaning non-existent. A word can then mean anything. Anything can be anything, and everything becomes whatever you want it to be, not what it actually is, which means everything is then nothing. A man can be a woman can no longer be defined as a human female with ovaries and uterus and a reproductive system that bears children. We lose reason and meaning at the same time. They go hand in hand. And with the redefinition of everything comes the loss of everything that actually matters. This is where the lies come in that create the majority of the problems we now face in every facet of society and life. A good example is the lie that children are a burden instead of a blessing. I mean, how could we possibly enjoy our expensive wine and charcuterie on our yacht in the Med during high season if we have these like tiny, sticky little people to take care of? Come on. Children are not just your future, but the future. It's the lack of children in most major Western superpowers and countries that are, terrifying governments and world leaders right now. Because in a decade or a generation, like, there won't be able to support their own economies due to low birth rates. Like, more and more news articles are getting written about this, but no one seems to be listening or interested because our culture is deafening in its anti-birther messaging. And yes, that is a real term. It's of you do you, and kids are like so annoying. Oh my gosh. Again, this has all been done before. Read a history book. It isn't complicated to figure out how this story ends, and it ain't good, gotta say. You are literally not going to have a yacht to sail on or be able to afford that wine you love, because if you don't have kids, your economy's gonna crash and your country's gonna crumble or go bankrupt or be invaded because you have no people to even be in your military and protect you. And so now you are possibly without a country to call home and have even less purpose and meaning to your life than you already do. And there will be no hope for the future because there is no one to carry the future forward. That is the truth about children. And I'm not hating on the yacht people. Like, let me be clear. I mean, I love a nice yacht and charcuterie and some wine. Like, guys, I love nice things. Don't get me wrong. I am a snob. I'm literally named after Tiffany & Co., the jewelry company, okay? I have a well-respected taste for the finer things. But when did we start valuing things that can be eaten or stolen or broken more than people, more than living human people? We value having dogs and cats now more than children. Or, an Hermes Birkin bag, which is a little more understandable. But animals don't talk back. You can give them away and no one is judging you for abandonment. It's not a two-way conversation or relationship. And it's one in which you usually, get a lot of love and kisses from this like furry creature for something as simple as existing in their life and feeding them. It's a pretty low bar. And I say this as someone who loves animals, like probably more than anyone you know. I mean, my house is like a freaking menagerie growing up. I've had everything from chameleons and tortoises to dogs, you name it. My parents tried buying an alpaca farm in Montana at one point. Anyway, I'm not dissing on animals here or how special they are. But I am saying that calling your pet your baby and child and calling yourself a dog mom is not the freaking same as being a real human mother to a real human child. When do we start conflating the two and now seemingly actually elevating the dog moms above being an actual parent? And I'm not talking about the millions of individuals who, can't have children or struggle with infertility or anything like that. I'm talking about those who specifically and intentionally choose not to have kids, despite having the means and the ability and the circumstances for them to thrive, simply out of selfishness. Children are so important for us to have because having kids is the most character forming and shaping thing that you can do as a fully developed adult. It's sort of like that last step in becoming a grown human person. There was that old joke where you can take care of a plant and then a pet, then you're ready for a kid. We just kind of cut off that last part. You have to become more selfless than you ever thought you could be. You have to prioritize someone else above yourself or your own needs or wants. Being a parent makes you kinder, more humble, more appreciative of everything good in life, more resilient, wiser, more fulfilled, happier. It gives you better priorities. Overall, it just makes you a better person. That's science, by the way. You literally live longer when you have kids. But here and now in 2024, we are told that children are an inconvenience, that they are a burden, that being a mom is the worst, that you are always tired and messy looking and can't afford business class plane seats or that, really nice face cream you want. The single rich aunt girl boss is out living her dreams while you're stuck at home watching Puppy Dog Pals and fixing frozen waffles or mac and cheese. Children are no longer considered what they traditionally have been considered throughout history and cultures. A blessing, a gift, the future. No, now they have been devolved into grubby, sticky, yelling, expensive annoyances that prevent you from having the best life. What utter and complete nonsense. Now that is a lie. So, we are now not only becoming shallower, more narcissistic, childless people who just live lives of no responsibility and only really answer to ourselves, but we're also killing our societies by skipping over and opting out of this essential character-forming experience. I mean, all in all, friends, we have lost the plot. Who's flying this plane? We no longer know what it is to be fully human. And if we aren't too busy posting on Instagram about our picture perfect lives, we're following and watching others who do and wishing we had their lives. And then we don't just have selfish, shallow people. We have some jealous, selfish, shallow people who live full of FOMO and constantly want the stuff they see other people have. And it's all just stuff. And most of it is made in China by children, ironically. So yeah, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Ridiculous. That is a part of the problem. By redefining the crucial role of parent and child, even the word itself and what it means, we have created a domino effect that is catastrophic. And by sitting idly by and just allowing others to redefine something as fundamental as a parent, we're guilty by association. We are the problem yet again. So, let's quickly recap, shall we? Historicism, relativism, the loss of goodness, truth, and beauty, the erosion of meaning and reason, the prioritization of being nice. These and so many others are the kinds of overarching themes that we are going to wrestle with during this show. We are going to get down and dirty, and it's gonna be fun, but more than fun, it's going to be informative. We aren't being smart. I want us to be smarter. We need us to be smarter. The future needs it too. We are winning small battle after small battle, but we are losing the larger war, and most of us can't even see it or know that we're in a war to begin with. We have to start talking to each other again. We have to start listening to each other again. We have to start learning and remembering and showing up and reading a book. We have to start somewhere. So why not here? And hey, I get it. You don't like problems. No one does. Problems are inconvenient. They can be messy. We live in a culture that rides on the phrase, not my problem, not my circus, not my monkeys. I mean, I've said that. But you and everyone else on planet Earth just want to live a quiet life with very little inconvenience or conflict, right? That makes sense. You maybe think that our communities and families can face something like the complete breakdown of something as fundamental as tradition. And it is going to affect you. You're isolated. You brush it off because it isn't in your face in the day-to-day. You're in the office or running errands or on a guy's trip or out with friends. You don't actually need to get involved to have to put in some effort or action. Why should you be the one who has to show up at the city council meeting or neighborhood association or school board meeting or the voting booth? You think, I'll let someone else do it. I'm going to go get my hair done. Or you think, what can I possibly do to make a difference? I'm no one. I have no power. I have no money. I don't have the education. I don't have the experience. I don't have the career. I'm a drop in the pond. And me and my actions, they don't really matter. I can't make a difference. It's just me. And that is the saddest, biggest, most pervasive lie of all. But I have good news. Are you ready? Yeah, TMB's back, babe. Mommy's here now. And I'm going to make everything better. And it might be a little violent. I'm going to blow that loser mentality up in your face. I am throwing the grenade into the crowded room, so everybody better run. My mission, should I choose to accept it, a la Ethan Hunt, is to destroy your apathy and reverse your discouragement, to eviscerate the lies you've been told and equip you with real facts and information that are actually useful. With your help together, we are going to start slowly cutting away at the cancers that are killing us silently and without remorse. Because let me repeat, there is no one else coming. You are the one who has to do something about all these problems we are going to discuss. You. Or you are the problem. So we need you. I need you. You know that I need you. I know that you need me. We need me. We need all of us. You matter. In case you forgot, or in case no one's told you today, or this year, or this decade, you matter. What you do matters. What you stand for matters. What you say matters. How you invest your time and energy and money matters. You are someone, and you stand on the timeline of the universe in the exact same spot that every great man and woman in history did before you. You can make a difference. You can solve our problems one day at a time. And we don't have to be best friends. I really am a really good friend though. But we don't have to agree. You may think I'm an idiot or crazy or whatever. And we don't have to agree, but and usually unfortunately I'm usually right. So just FYI. In fact, you might think I'm a little harsh. I've been called that before. You maybe think I could be, shall we say, spicy? Maybe that's your problem with me. You may even think that I'm a little mean. You might think that I should be, what's that word again? Nicer. That we should just be nice. Stay in our own lanes. Continue the status quo. Everything's going to be okay. Just accept everything and tolerate everyone and call it kindness or empathy. But it isn't kindness or empathy, because while truth without love is harsh, love without truth is empty. It's nothing. And that's the kind of niceness this world now runs on. It's all a facade. It's just a house of cards waiting to be blown over. And sorry to tell you, but guys, I want tradition. I want something solid and permanent that I could stand on. I want goodness and truth and beauty. I want justice and rightness. I want reason and meaning to win the day. I want virtuous men and women to make up the fabric of our societies and cultures. I want families. I want people to know history and read, or at least pay attention to what's going on around them just a little more than they do the latest TikTok trend. I want to make America smart again. I want us to be smart people making smart decisions. And I think we can be, with your help. We just have to put a little bit of effort in and pay attention. We have to not get drawn into these petty arguments and political clickbait and polarizing whatevers. We have to be the bigger person. We are going to have to be the adult in the room. The proverbial parent who scolds their child so that they don't burn their hand on the hot stovetop. That is love. That is kindness. That is wanting the best for someone. That is being nice. And that is what I'm here for. So, they say a good friend always stabs you in the face, never in the back. And, as I said, I happen to be a very good friend. So if you really want me to be nicer, I'll make you a deal. I'll be nicer if you'll be smarter. Thanks for joining this episode of TMB Problems. We hope you'll join us every week as we continue to tackle all the problems that I have, which, are a lot. I have a lot of problems. But as we've established, my problems are everyone's problems, so you guys gotta help. You gotta chip in here. I can't do this by myself.